We are waiting a few minutes before starting because there are people that might enter in a few minutes. Okay, good morning. I think we can now start this meeting, which is the 6th in the series of the Policymaker policy session of the RISIS Infrastructure for Science and Innovation Studies. All the people are, all the speakers are here, so I think we can start. My name is Emanuela Reale. I am one of the researchers involved in RISIS and CNR, and my institute is particularly involved in the task of dissemination and communication activities. My task here is just to make a very short introduction of what RISIS is for people that is for the first time join our session and activities. RISIS is a research infrastructure providing services and data for science and innovation studies. It initiated in 2014 and then was approved the second round from 2019. What is RISIS providing to scholars in science, technology and innovation policies is the access, free access to data sets, free access to services, the free use of registers on research organizations and firms, the possibility to use freely a tool which is NOMAC for visualization maps about actors, topics and geography of knowledge producers in Europe, and also indicators on this triplet of actors, topics and geography. We have also provide training for methodological advances and dissemination, strong activity on dissemination through conferences, research seminars, and policy session and communication. So the RISIS policy session are specific events devoted basically to policy learning. What is policy learning in our meaning? It means showing the novelty that emerge from data and what kind of questions we can answer for policy making, but also understanding what we can learn as science, technology and innovation community for the audience, from the audience of the meeting, observing how the users understand what RISIS must do. We have policy brief which accompany each policy session. In this case, we have a dedicated policy brief on this session. And today the theme is about what large firms' invention tell us as to the strategic innovation policies. So basically, what the speakers today will show you is a research results which has something to say about the role of these large firms in building competitive metropolitan areas. We have different data sets family. We have a European integration, knowledge dynamics, PhD and careers, but also a group of data sets and services on firm innovation. And in this case, the data sets and service used were the IAB with data at the firm level for the largest R&D corporate performers, 90% of the world corporate industrial R&D. The second data set is the RISIS patent, which offers an enriched version of the PATSTAT data set produced by the EPO, with several services offered, which are going to be improved next year, and the Cortex service, which is a platform for online processing of textual corpuses, and also supply a very important support for the development of the results we are going to present. The speaker, a few words of the speakers. We have three researchers inside the RISIS community. Philippe Laredo is professor at Universitè Gustave Eiffel in Paris and also professor at the Manchester Business School. He has been the coordinator of some important initiative at European level, namely Prime Network of Excellence, and presently he is the project coordinator of the RISIS project. We have Patricia Laurens, which is a researcher at LISIS of the Universitè Gustave Eiffel, whose work was mainly focused on the study of R&D activities of large firms using patent database. And Antoine Schoen is an engineering, management and technology, and a scientific director of the indicator pole at the IFRIS Research Consortium in France. We also have two very, very high-level discussants for this meeting. Caroline Ponov is a senior economist and head of Secretariat of the OECD Working Part on Innovation and Technology Policy. And Pietro Moncada Paterno Castello is a senior expert in economics and policy of industrial research and innovation at European Commission Joint Research Center. So thank you very much to all the speakers, both our colleagues in RISIS and the discussant for accepting the invitation. I think we can move on with the program. We will have the presentation of the results. I kindly ask my colleagues to keep 40 minutes as a maximum for the presentation. Then we have the discussant with 10-15 minutes each. After the comments of the discussion, we can have an answer from the speakers, from the presenters, and then we can open for the debate and the closing. I kindly ask all the participants to switch off the microphone in order to avoid noise from external, and use the chat for questions that might arise using the presentation. Thank you very much, and now I give the floor to my colleague Alessia Fava, which will manage the meeting. First speakers, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Manuela, and please, Patricia, you can begin your presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, good afternoon to everybody. It's a pleasure for Philippe Laredo, Antoine Schoen, and myself to participate to this RISIS event and to share with you our recent results work on the role of large multinational firms in building the competitive metropolitan areas. At the time where globalization is the object of multiple discussion and where issues related to the technological sovereignties are raised again, we considered as central to evaluate the role of large firms in our systems and to study the geography of innovation for large firms at a regional level. We shall take the inventive activities and international patent as a central marker in this study, and we will show that the 4,000 largest top R&D investor multinational firms represent about 80% of the world international patent. In Europe, we do not only focus at the country level, but more and more at the regional level. This raised a second question. Are the R&D investment of large firms concentrated in a few large metropolitan areas, or do they actively participate to the distribution of knowledge bases all over Europe? We shall see that we have differences between continents and quite a wide distribution of LMF activities in Europe. Third, there has been a tradition of quantitative measurement of the internationalization of large firm R&D activities. And this has been studied at focusing on firms, but less on places where they invest. So we will turn the question upside down and study which firm invest in which places. So we shall demonstrate that, for example, in Europe, not only national large multinational firms contribute to inventions in European areas, but that other European non-national large company and non-European companies participate also. And this is true in different kind of metropolitan areas. As Emanuela just said before, for making this point, we mobilize three core resources in RISIS: the CIB database or firm database, the RISIS patent dataset, and the Cortext geolocation tool. So let's now present our approach and results. So we use a patent as a proxy for R&D activity. This is not new. There is a tradition to use a patent as an indicator of firm innovative capacities. Patent is the signal given by an economic actor of a possible potential value of a technical invention. Patents are easy to access. We can have long time series. They provide a rich set of information on dates, places, inventors, applicants. And using inventor addresses enables the mapping of firm technological activity at geographical level. So it allows to identify the places where the novelty is created. Of course, there are some drawbacks. Patents do not reflect all innovative activity. They are centered and account only for codified knowledge. And there are, of course, some bias that have to be considered. So in the RISIS project, we built what we call RISIS, the RISIS patent database. It is a database of priority patents applied worldwide by legal organization. Of course, we rely on the PatStat database for the raw data. The fact that we use priority patent takes its roots in the work done by Gaëtan de Rasenfos a few years ago when he proposed the worldwide patent indicator. One of the interests is that it avoids double counting. We focus on application, and the priority patent is the application that is the closest to the production of the invention. So our RISIS patent database V1, the current one, includes priority patent application from 2000 to 2014 in terms of completed years, which correspond to patent published between 2002 and 2016. So we have about 14 million application of priority patent. We provide several enrichment compared to the initial PatStat data. For example, we fill a lot of missing value using additional sources, also internal filling, for example, to fill missing addresses, IPC codes, titles, and so on. We also add new type of data that are not present in the original PatStat database. For example, classification of applicant type, harmonization of applicant's name, and we also link the applicant with both ETHER and FirmReg repositories that are repository built during the RISIS project. Another very important addition is the geocoding of addresses, inventor and applicant, and the allocation of addresses to geographical areas. So this RISIS patent database was designed to study innovation or invention activities in 3 dimensions: geography, actor and technology. So we select priority patents, but we also have to filter because a priority patent cover a wide range of patent of various value. So we want to have a threshold for those patents, and first of all, we want priority patent to be applied in several countries. This means that there is a possible higher economical value, and it reduces the national bias. We also want our priority patent to be applied in main economic zone, and we select US, Europe, Japan, China, and Korea as those 5 zones are where the 5 largest intellectual property offices are located. A priority patent is very often applied only in one country, and it's only 20% of the priority patents that are applied in several offices. We have decided to focus on what we call 2 IP5 priority patents that are patents that was applied at least in 2 IP5 offices. We think it's a good marker for internationally valuable technology output of R&D, and we call those patents international patents. They represent about 15% of the overall priority patent in our database. Just a global overview of the geography of invention. As you can see on the graph on your left-hand side, the number of patents is increasing over time. We will compare 2 periods of time. The first one is 2000-2004, and the second one is 2010-2014. So the number of patents is increasing in the first period from 500,000 to about 700,000 10 years later. But this increase is not homogeneously distributed over continents. And as you can see on the graph on your right-hand side, the share of patents invented in Europe has increased in 10 years from 44% to more than 50%. And at the same time, the share of patent originating from Europe and or North America has decreased from 2 to 3 points. So the actor we are focusing on today are large multinational firms, or LMF. Of course, as you know, they are economical key players. Their added value in 2010 at the world level was considered as 1/4 of the global GDP. The top large multinational firm in their R&D expenditure represent about 90% of all global business R&D. So they are really a major actor in the R&D expenditure worldwide. Those large LMF have a significant, have constant, are a large source of R&D expenditure, and this source, their R&D expenditure is increasing over time, as you can see on the graph here. They have those worldwide companies increase significantly their R&D investment for 9 consecutive years. Of course, this increase of investment is not homogeneously distributed. US and Chinese companies increase sharply their R&D investment, whereas European companies and Japanese one are following behind. So we built the RISIS CIB2 database, which gather the top LMF R&D performer. In order to build this database, we have 2 sources of firm names. the European Industrial R&D Investment Scoreboard, and we include several editions from 2008 to 2014. And we also include names of applicants identified by WIPO as top PCT patent applicants. So for these names, we identify the parent company name, the JUO or IJUO names, using the Orbis database. And we further identify the LMF perimeter in order to include subsidiaries with a parent share higher than 50%. So we end with 3,993 large multinational companies that are the top R&D performer worldwide. And we also include a total of about 300,000 affiliates. So here in this slide, you have the distribution of those companies worldwide, so quite balanced over continents. The US is 27%, then come Japanese companies, 14%, and then China, Germany, and UK around 7 to 8%. So we had to build the patent portfolio of those top LMF R&D performer, and so for this we had to we had to match the firm names of the CIB2 database with the patent applicant names of the RISIS patent database. So for this, a new algorithm was designed in our lab, which is the patent automatic matching. So at the end, we collect the international applied by LMF. For the first period of time, 2000 to 2004, it's about 400,000 patents, and 10 years later, the number of patents is about 560,000 patents. So now the question is, to which extent do these LMF inventive activity do they play a core role? And the answer is yes. At the worldwide level, or group of LMF inventive firms contribute to about 75% of the overall patenting activities. And this share is increasing over time. Of course, it is unevenly distributed across continents. The contribution of LMF is much higher in Asia, more than 80%, than it is in Europe and North America, which are about where it's this share is about 70%. We can notice that it's an increasing trend, in particular in North America, where the share has quite significantly increased in 10 years. So the last dimension is the geography for the invention of LMF. So location of activity has been an increasingly important determinant for the growth of multinational firms. R&D internationalization was the core of numerous researches dedicated to firms. And the dominant view was for long that globalization of R&D activity are growing because companies are increasingly trying to capture both knowledge and market opportunities worldwide. R&D investment could also be pictured as a trade-off between the benefits from localizing R&D activity worldwide, but also this leads to a lot of cost that could became a problem for firms. or study on the geography or LMF R&D internationalization that we published some 5 years ago has shown, for example, that R&D is still the first home-based place for the global R&D internationalization. It was still about 24% some years ago, and it was quite stable. We have seen that there were some regional differentiate trends. European firms are quite internationalized, and European firms do tend to refocus R&D in European countries. US firms tend to get more and more internationalized, and there is a rising internationalization of Asian firms in terms of their R&D activities. So besides internationalization, another trend of the firms is to outsource R&D activity and to partner. And in a world getting more and more integrated and where barriers are lowered, local agglomeration can emerge because of local comparative advantage. This can occur at region level, cities, and in a sense, at a regional level, the world could be considered as more uneven or spiky. So there is a need to study the geography of innovation at a local scale and to move away from administrative boundaries in order to rely more on the international dynamics of the data. That is why the RISIS tool to analyze location was developed. And this is the Cortex Geo tool, which allows, on the one hand, the geocoding of addresses and also the allocation of addresses to areas. Metropolitan areas, it's used the concept of functional urban areas to identify urban area. It was first identified by OECD some years ago, and it is based on this concept of FUA is based on a core dense space measured by inhabitant density, with the addition of additional area that functionally depend on this core center, using quite often commuting data. So following this concept and using additional sources, the Cortex Geo tool has identified urban areas worldwide. It was done previously for OECD countries, and Cortex did this identification of urban areas worldwide using aggregating locations that are next to a dense urban center. What is quite new, provided by this Cortex Geo tool, is that outside areas of highest concentration of inhabitants, non-metropolitan areas were also identified. Those non-metropolitan areas are geographic division of spaces left behind between metropolitan areas, and they are based on administrative delineation. So following OECD, both metropolitan and non-metropolitan area are classified based on their population. So in this presentation, we will define four groups of areas. Large metropolitan areas, LMA, for population over 1.5 million. Mid-sized metropolitan area, MMA, for population between 100,000 to 1.5 million. Small metropolitan areas for population between 50,000 to 100,000, and non-metropolitan areas. So the total of areas worldwide is about 5,700. half of them are mid-sized metropolitan area and small-sized metropolitan area. Non-metropolitan area represent about 46% of the overall areas, and large metropolitan areas are only 193, which is about 3% of the metropolitan areas worldwide. So we will focus our work on metropolitan areas, because as you can see here, metropolitan areas gather most of the inventive activities worldwide. They contribute altogether to more than 88% of the inventive activities of large multinational firms. It's of course where the population is located. Now we will investigate which share of metropolitan areas are inventive. And we have found that considering all invention worldwide, the number of inventive metropolitan area is about 1,800, which represent about 58% of the overall number of metropolitan areas. If we consider only invention made in large multinational firms, this share is lower. It's about 52%. So we can say that the overall inventive activities are quite widespread worldwide. And this is once again not homogeneous over continent. The share of inventive metropolitan area is very high in North America, close to 100%. It's moderate, it's lower in Europe, about 60%, and it's quite low in Asia, close to 30%. Our next question is the inventive activity of LMF concentrated, or was well distributed over inventive MA? The answer is quite simple. It's quite concentrated. As you can see on the graph on your left-hand side, we have a few MA that do contribute significantly to the production. The top one is more than 20% of the the worldwide share. Then we have a few around 5%, and then the share of the metropolitan area is getting quite low. On the graph on your right-hand side, we have the same kind of information. The top 10 most inventive metropolitan areas worldwide gather almost 50% of the invention, and the top 100 gather 83%. So LMF inventive activities show a high geographical concentration. And what has to be reminded is that the top 100 metropolitan areas that represent only 60% of the worldwide MA produce about 83% of the LMF patents. And we are now going to focus on this one top most inventive MA worldwide that represent the large share of the overall inventive activities worldwide. So in terms of number of patents, the distribution over continent shows that Asian metropolitan area dominate. Their share is about more than 60%, and it's increasing over time. North America and Europe were close to 20% in our first period of time. And the share of Europe has decreased quite significantly, which is not the case of North America. So there is an important decrease of the European top of the European MA in the top 100 metropolitan area in 10 years. So in this slide, I will show you the top 100 metropolitan areas worldwide. First of all, those that are located in Europe. The first it can be noticed that none of the top 10 are located in Europe. We have 35 metropolitan areas among the top 100 worldwide in Europe. 17 are in Germany, 4 in France. And the first are Paris, Stuttgart, Munich, Eindhoven, and Stockholm. If we now go to Asia, the picture is a bit different. A lot of the top 10 MA are Asian ones. 18 of those metropolitan areas are Japanese one, and then we have 8 metropolitan areas among the top 100 in China. And the first ones are Tokyo, Osaka, Seoul, Guangzhou, and Beijing. In North America, we have 34 metropolitan areas among the top 10. Of course, most of them in the US, and we can cite San Jose, Detroit, San Diego, Seattle, and San Francisco among the top. So we have seen that the top 100 metropolitan area worldwide host about 82% of the LMF activities, but the concentration varies. This concentration varies across continents. As a matter of fact, in order to produce 82% of the Asian patent, this is produced only by the top 9 Asian metropolitan areas, so it's very concentrated in Asia. In order to produce 80% of the North America patent invented in North America, the top 50 North American MA are needed, and in Europe it's more widespread because it's in the top 105 European MA that produce 82% of European invention. So now our question is which type of metropolitan area belongs to that top 100 worldwide? And as can be seen in this table, the distribution in terms of number of metropolitan area is quite balanced between LMA. We have 15 LMA in the top 10, in the top 100, sorry, and 49 MMA. Conversely, the respective contribution of LMA and MMA in the patent production is quite uneven, and LMA contribute to around 80% of the invention carried out in the top 100. This is it's also interesting to notice that the inventive intensity in LMA is lower than in NMA. Inventive intensity is defined as the number of inventors multiplied by 1,000 divided by the population. And at last, as you can see, SMA do not contribute to the top 10 MA worldwide. So in this slide, we consider the top 100 invented MA in each of the 3 continents. So we have the top continental MA in Asia, in Europe, including Israel, and in North America. So first of all, the patent concentration in the top 100 continental MA is significantly higher in Asia, 99.5%, than it is in North America, 92%, and compared to Europe, where the top 100 European MA contribute to 81% of the invention made in European MA. Then we can compare, we compare the distribution of LMA and MMA in the 3 continents in terms of the number of areas, the corporate patent and population, and inventive activity. And this comparison shows some striking differences across continents. First, the ratio in the number of LMA to MMA widely differ between Asia and the 2 other continents. In Asia, the number of LMA and MMA is quite similar, respectively 56 for LMA and 46 for LMA and 49 for MMA. Whereas both in Europe and North America, the number of MMA exceed quite significantly the number of LMA. Second, the distribution of patent between LMA and MMA in the 3 continents also varies quite substantially. In Asia and in North America, LMA dominate over MMA. We have respectively more than 90% in Asia and about 70% in Europe, in North America, sorry. And moreover, the distribution of patent between the LMA and the MMA, both in Asia and North America, more or less follow the distribution of the population in those 2 groups of MA in the 3 continents. What about Europe? Europe behaves differently. First of all, in Europe, both LMA and MMA contribute quite similarly to the production of patents. We have 40% of patents produced in LMA in the top and 45% in LMA and 50% in MMA. In addition, another difference, in Europe, the distribution of patent between LMA and MMA does not follow the distribution of population, which is 70% of the population in LMA, where only 45% of the patents are produced. So this mismatch is also evidence comparing the value of the inventive intensity in European LMA to MMA, as one can see that the inventive intensity in European LMA is quite low. It's 0.737 compared to the inventive intensity in European MMA. And it's also the inventive intensity of European LMA is also quite low compared to what is found in LMA in Asia and in North America. So this the reason for this particular distribution of the inventive activity, more centered on MMA in Europe, is to be further investigated. One of the possible reasons could be an historical one linked to a long time path dependency effect of such inventive activity in European MMA. So now on this slide, you can see the top European MA. So I can list a few of them: Paris, Stuttgart, Munich, Eindhoven, Stockholm, Nuremberg, Frankfurt, Mannheim, Helsinki, and Regensburg are the top 10. 6 of them are German ones. Another parameter we have is the attractivity of metropolitan for large companies. We define inventive activity using two variables: the number of LMF with an inventive activity in a given metropolitan area, and among those LMF, the share of them with a significant inventive activity in the given metropolitan area. And we define it as a company with more than 100 patents invented in the MA. So the results are the following. LMA are the most attractive place for large companies. It's where the share of high inventive LMF is the highest, and the attractivity overall, the attractivity of metropolitan area is higher in Asia compared to North America and Europe. So, for example, in Europe, on average, LMA do attract 66 large companies, and 12% of them are what we call significant company with a significant inventive activity. Here you have a focus on the attractivity of the top 25 European MA. So on average, the attractivity is for Europe is, as I told you, 66 MA and about 12% of high inventors, corporate inventor. So in this view graph, we have more or less three types of metropolitan area. The top three, Paris, Stuttgart, and Munich, where both the number of LMA and the share of top LMF is above the European average. Frankfurt behave also similarly. We have another group of region where the average for the number of LMF is higher than the European average. This is the case in London, in Berlin, and in Essen. But for those regions, the average in the share of large patenter is below the European average. And we have a third group where the number of LMF is below the average, but where the share of large corporate patenter is above the European average. And this is the case in Regensburg, in Basel, Malmö, Göteborg, or Toulouse. The last aspect that we investigate here is the internationalization of large corporate inventions. We define internationalization by comparing the country where the LMF headquarters are located, and we compare this country to the country where the invention was made. So overall, in the three continents, national invention are made, by national LMF, but the share of invention made by national LMF is very high in Asia, higher than 90%, and Asian MA do show a low international attractivity. Only few foreign companies invent in Asian countries, even if this probably slightly increased. In North America, the national LMF dominate, around 70%, but we can see that North America also, North American MA also attracts a significant share of invention made by LMF located overseas. This is about 25%. And Europe is characterized by a strong international attractivity, both intracontinental and intercontinental attractivity account respectively for 23 and 20% of the LMF invention. Once again, we also compare the attractivity depending on the type of metropolitan areas. And we have seen that both LMA, large metropolitan areas, and mid-sized metropolitan area do attract international invention from large companies. And in Europe, the attractivity, the international attractivity of MMA is is quite high, and the invention of foreign LMF are first carried out in metropolitan area, in mid-size metropolitan areas in Europe. To end with the results, once again, the focus on the top 25 European metropolitan areas. So on average, the European average is a national share of about 60, close to 60%, and an intercontinental share of about 20%, and an intracontinental share of about 23%. Of course, the region show there's quite a high heterogeneity among the top 25 regions. We can see some outliers. Some metropolitan area, top metropolitan, European metropolitan areas are very national. This is the case of Eindhoven, where of course Philippe is the top patenter and represents 70% of the overall invention in the Eindhoven metropolitan area. It's also the case in Regensburg, where we have two companies, Osram and Krones, that are national companies. We have outliers that do show a very international behavior. This is the case of Basel. In Basel, we have some national share linked to Roche and Novartis. International, national intracontinental company like DSM do patent, do invent in Basel, and international company from China, for example. Milan is also a metropolitan area, quite where the invention are quite distributed. We also have well, a few others. Well, I'll go to the conclusion and summarize our 4 core results. LMF represent 80% of the world international patent, which confirm the quite high concentration of the result that we obtained for financial data. LMF are present in more than half of the metropolitan area, considering the 3 continents, but the distribution is quite skewed. 100 MA concentrate more than 80% of the LMF activities worldwide, and of course, this concentration is higher in Asia compared to North America and Europe. The distribution of LMF activities follow more or less the distribution of population, and top LMA concentrate a larger of inventive activity in Asia and North America, but Europe behave differently, and mid-size metropolitan area matter more in Europe. And in Europe, the origin of LMA differ widely compared to Asia and North America. And this is shown by the international attractivity, the high international attractivity of Europe, where a non-national LMF represents around 24% of the invention, while other European LMF represent about 23%. And 1 international patent out of 5 comes from a non-European LMF. And this figures is quite the same between small, mid-size and large MMA. Next step, of course, there's a lot to do. These were quite recent and global results we have shown. Next steps are multiples. We would like to investigate the diversity of field specialization of metropolitan area. That's a subject that was not in this presentation. We also would like to know what lies behind the international attractivity of Europe. We would like to explain the variability in the international opening across European metropolitan. we would like to understand better the relationship between the distribution of population and inventive activity. And of course, there is a huge interest also in studying the relationship between LMF anchoring in MA and the academic activities. I will now leave the floor to Philippe Laredo for the policy implications that are induced by this presentation. Thank you.
Hello to all, and I'll try to be quite short, pushing forward 4 types of questions we are asking ourselves and we think are an object of debate rather than a conclusion. There's been a lot of academic developments that highlight the role played by large actors at the territorial level. It's the theory of the anchor tenant. And as anchor tenants, they first are role models. They mobilize also their R&D activities. In their R&D activities, many small firms. They often provide support for international development. And we wonder whether this point is sufficiently taken into account when we discuss current innovation policies. So that's our first question. The second question is, should we revise our policies and should they address all types of LMF? Should we consider that LMF are strong enough to do their own things? Or should there be policies that are more sector or technology focused? And if so, should these policies be at the national level, because economic policies are mostly at the national level, or should they be more relevant at the regional level if we witness the huge variety even in each country between the different type of metropolitan areas? The third question lies in a debate that we have about inclusiveness, about access to knowledge of all regions in Europe, and do these results, and even though it's more distributed in Europe than in the other continents, do these results question our policies? And should we better balance dimensions between competitiveness and inclusiveness? And the last result for us that is really questioning, which we did not expect at all, is the striking role of non-European firms in our metropolitan areas. And does this warrant specific attention, specific policies, and again, at which level? So 4 types of complementary questions that I would like to open or to push forward in the debate. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Philippe, for the policy implication you raise. I would ask to the floor if there is some reaction